Up+Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up+Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Thank you so much for being Up+Adam. My name is Adam Montiel. It is Thursday. Almost made it to the weekend. Busy day today, cooling down a little today, just in time to get a little bit warmer for the weekend, and then things will kind of back off, get cool again. I hope you're having a great week. I mentioned a podcast before we get into today's show. I mentioned a podcast that I'm trying to get some of the people from it on here. It was told to me, it was referred to me by Luke and Max Utzon. They're from Castoro Cellars and Bethel Road Distillery, brothers, great guys. And he's like, have you heard of this podcast? It's a true crime podcast. One of those like scammer kind of things. You know, we had that Rachel cancer scam one. We talked to the guy a bunch. This one's different. This one's even, I mean, if it's possible to be more wild and more crazy, this one is. It's called Unraveled, Season 4. This podcast published in 2019. And it's still like your jaw is just dropped. And the best part about it is this podcast starts in New Zealand and it brings you right through SoCal, right into Paso, right into what I think is the Vaughn's parking lot on Broad in San Luis Obispo, right here in SLO. The woman who was scamming everybody lives here. I think she's still here. And I'm listening to this podcast after it got recommended to me. And I'm just like, even if it had no local connections, I would have been, damn, this is crazy. And, you know, you got like the Kiwi accent. It's like some like surfer Kiwi dude. So, you know, it's easy to listen to his voice. It's kind of cool. He talks to his family. His brother is the one who was affected. This girl, I'm not going to give you too much because you got to go listen to it. It's only like 6 or 7 episodes. But he goes to New Zealand. She scams, does some scamming there, goes to Hawaii, dishes out a little, shrimp scammy, and then goes to a whole other place, sprinkles on some scamatron. So it's just all over the place. And then she comes here. And do you remember that restaurant up in Paso? It was after Vinoteca, before La Cosecha in that spot. It was called Phenomenal. Remember I used to put on the Mac and Cheese Fest. These guys were the first ones to ever win. They won the Mac and Cheese Fest year 1. It was Phenomenal, spelled with an F. The owner was a guy named Kevin Kuhn. This is not him. It's the gal who he was dating was scamming the living snot out of him. And she had been doing it like literally all over the world. Anyways, then I'm hearing this voice on the podcast and I'm like, I know that voice. Like that's Samantha Welch. Like just interviewed her for Restaurant Month. Like, you know, she's the GM or the vice president of something for like Blue Mango Group, which is like Luna Red, Novo. We're strong acquaintances. We don't like hang out all the time, but I know her very well. And I know that voice. And I text her. I'm like, because they changed the names of the people in the podcast, or at least a couple of them. And she elected to have her name changed. And I go, are you Sarah? I'm listening to Unraveled Season 4. Are you Sarah? She goes, yep. So she said she'd be down to talk. So interesting. This podcast, this scam gal, you got to go check it out. If you're into true crime, this one you can binge pretty easily. But I want to talk, I'd love to find her. She played chess Jedi mind tricks on you though. Like she's good. But I would definitely love to talk to her. Sam said she would talk. I wonder if I can get Kevin to talk. They changed his name in the podcast, but it's good. It is good. You're just like jaw drop that somebody could be so just diabolically effed up. And then the way that they catch her, that's where it's like just crazy, like passwords and getting into emails and getting the backstage of everything this gal has gotten into. It's good. I'll tell you again, it's the Unraveled podcast. There's many seasons of Unravel. This is season 4, and every season has a name. This one's called Snowball. All right, so Unraveled, season 4, Snowball. And when you hear the guy with the, I don't want to say good day, mate, because that's Australian, and they hate. New Zealanders and Aussies hate it when you mix them up. And I get it. I don't want to do that. But there's a Kiwi, really cool podcast. All right. Okay. And then I'm going to work to get some of these folks on here because I would love to chat it up. Interesting stuff, but nevertheless, a good recommendation. Okay, cool. Let's get into today's show. There is a word we're really going to tap into. We had actor writer Strong on the show earlier this week. We've had fun. We talked to Michael Jackson yesterday, had some live performances from KB of Imua. Today, we're going to tap in to that EQ. All right, we're going into the emotional intelligence. There is a word you've probably never used to describe what you've been doing your whole life if you're a daughter. And once you hear it, you're never going to stop using it. And that is daughtering. It's the invisible labor, the mental and emotional heavy lifting, the planning and the worrying and the deep breath before you answer the phone and an even deeper breath after you hang up. And look, it's just Thursday, but Thursdays can be exhausting. Dr. Allison Alford, she is a researcher, a communications expert, and the author of Good Daughtering. And she's coming up in just a few minutes to name the things so many women have been carrying around with them without ever having the words for it. We're talking about that messy middle, the am I doing enough, the meter that might not ever quite feel like it's being met, the switch that never quite feels it's being turned off, and why the most invisible work in a family is almost always being done by an adult daughter. Yeah, let that sink in. Interesting. Fantastic conversation that's coming up in just a couple minutes. But before that, I want to tell you about my friends at the Mountain Air. we're going to have them on the show very soon. I love that they have jumped on board supporting Up+Adam, the Mountain Air in San Luis Obispo. And if you are in a place like here, like SLO, you don't last long unless you're doing something right. And the Mountain Air, they've been doing something right since 1975. Right there on Marsh Street, they've helped generations of locals get outside at all skill levels, hiking, camping, climbing, heading to the snow even. So the shop was started by a guy named Wayne Patterson. Now it's owned by Lindsay and Josh Herring, who were part of it long before they took it over, raising their family right here on the Central Coast, living it, not managing it from somewhere else. And you feel that. You certainly feel that when you walk in. It's not overwhelming. It's not transactional. It's local. People who know what you need, even if you don't quite know how to ask for it yet. And if you are headed to the snow, they've got the only full-service ski and snowboard repair and rental shop in the county. That tells you everything. Just a couple doors down, they got a sister shop called The Switchback. That's where you can buy and sell your used gear so your stuff gets another shot, gets another run. Someone else gets their try at it. And what I love about them most is this. This literally is what we are about and what local advertising is all about. Real business supporting real communities and keeping that connection right here at home. If you stop by, let them know, please. You let them know that you heard them on Up+Adam and just say thank you, not just for keeping it local with who they serve, but keeping it local with the dollars that they earn, because that matters. And if you're thinking of getting some for the outside, you don't need that big 3-letter store that's on the other side of Madonna. We got the Mountain Air on Marsh, themountaineer.com. Also check out the switchback.com. The Mountain Air, San Luis Obispo.
It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, she has spent over a decade asking women to describe what they do as daughters. And what she found is that most of them couldn't. Not because they weren't doing anything, it's because what they were doing was so woven into the fabric of daily life that it had become almost invisible, even to them. Dr. Allison Alford, she is a communication researcher, best-selling author, the founder of Daughtering 101, and the author, the book is called Good Daughtering, the work you've always done, the credit you've never gotten, and how to finally feel like enough. What a title, huh? And if any part of that subtitle just hit you, in the chest as a woman, or maybe as a man who is with a woman who feels this, trust that feeling. Dr. Alford, thank you so much for being Up and Adam.
Yes, I'm excited to be here and talk about the book. It's a great privilege, actually.
Yeah, I'm the whole idea of like daughtering, right? I mean, it's pretty, I mean, I feel like this is like a word that we needed. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, daughtering is the often invisible labor, the mental, emotional, logistical identity work that women do to keep families connected, and where you're often burnt out from doing it without even realizing or noticing that we're doing it. So I think it's such an important conversation to have because it's invisible. That means we're not talking about it. We're not noticing it. We're not using the language for it. And so things like this start to turn the tide, culturally, to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's this moment where you describe kind of the sigh before answering the phone, right? The deep breath after hanging up the phone. It's not dramatic per se. It's just Tuesday, but it's still it's loaded. When did you realize that what daughters call just being there is actually kind of this unpaid emotional infrastructure, sometimes holding families upright?
Yeah, I am a researcher by training. And so it started over 10 years ago when I was earning my PhD and I was doing my doctoral research. And I started talking to women. And I began with a really simple question, like, what are you doing as a daughter that is meaningful in that relationship? What is it? How do you show up? And I learned from these women, first of all, that was like talking in a foreign tongue. They couldn't tell me what they were doing. They could only say, well, my mom does this, and my mom is such a good mom. She, shares with me how to do that, or she takes care of me and I want to get back to her. But they weren't actually really describing like what's happening on the phone call that you're having, or what's happening at the Thanksgiving dinner that you're going to, once a year. And so I started to tease out these little things, asking them these little small things like, well, but what about right there? What you just described in that story? I asked them for stories. And I started to notice there were many things happening in women's lives, but women didn't know how to narrate them. They didn't know how to describe their own emotional investment, their own mental, the worry, the cost of it, the resources that it takes. And so through many forms of research and gathering data, that's where I began to put a name to this active role that women play in families.
You say the most common complaint from adult daughters isn't so much anger. It's kind of this quiet ache of I'm not doing enough. And it's very internal, but it's also very loud. I mean, what does that relentless meter of enoughness, where does it actually come from? Is it our parents? Is it society? Or is it something that we built inside ourselves to survive this relationship?
What a smart type of question. I love that. That gives me a lot of thought, Adam. Like, how do I put this all together? I think it comes from all of those places. Ultimately, women are wandering around feeling like I'm not good enough. I need to do more. I should try harder. I should show up more. I should spend more money. I should do more vacations, or I should go visit more times a year. Or we're thinking, well, my best friend does such and such with her mom or her dad. I should probably be doing those things too. So it does have a lot of influence from the culture about sort of women just constantly being asked to perform and give more, especially in caring roles. But I would say that a lot of it does come from an internal meter that we're giving ourselves a grade about whether we've done well enough, but we never articulate what's the measurement stick? What's the rubric that we're measuring ourselves against or giving ourselves the grade for? And I think if we did that a little bit better and more articulate, we could find out, wow, I'm actually doing a lot. I am a pretty good daughter, and I deserve to feel good about myself and have a little bit of relief. So that's why I wrote the book. I want women in the first part of the book, I want women to see daughtering is so many things. many more than you may have ever calculated. And so now you're like, oh, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And then once you see it and you start talking about it, you can also start to change it so that you can avoid burnout or feeling bitter or disconnected or, overused in your family.
And, while some daughters might have like toxic extremes, the book, it feels like, is really for like that messy middle, right? Like the ones who love their parents deeply, but it still feels rather complicated. Like, why is the messy middle actually sometimes even harder to navigate than a clearly broken relationship?
Yeah, great point. If you're a daughter with trauma, abuse, toxic parents, then this is not what I'm talking about or for you. There's other books and professionals for you to go see, and it's really important that you do. But the people who I'm writing to are women like me. You have a family, you have people that you love, but you realize it could be better. It could be less annoying. It could be less stressful, or maybe I wouldn't feel such a burden to do so much. And that's what I call the messy middle. Often women think that there are some idealized relationships, and we know that there's some toxic relationships. But most of us are somewhere in the middle, just wanting it to be a little bit better. And I think it's so hard to talk about because we either feel like I shouldn't complain or say difficult, negative things about my family because it will hurt their feelings, or because I don't have it as bad as that other gal who is barely holding on, barely surviving. And so we kind of feel trapped in this middle ground. But I'm here to say we can talk about it. We can put language to it. We can describe daughtering as work. And that doesn't make it more of a conflict. Instead, it provides relief because we're sharing our story with each other, and we're really giving a lot of words and nuance to the experience we're having.
There's this moment in your research where a daughter chooses not to tell her mom that she wants more, maybe intimacy, right? Because she doesn't want to hurt her. Why are daughters so often protecting their parents' emotional comfort, sometimes at the expense of their own growth?
Yeah, that is it was a key moment in my life where I was talking to this woman and she was saying to me, I'm not really doing that much daughtering. And I was like, well, tell me all about it. And she described to me so many things that she was doing, but a lot of task things, hosting events, phone calls, checking on a medical thing, things like that. And she wasn't really calculating that. And she ended up her little litany of things that she was doing by saying, but we're not really close. She doesn't really know me. And my response to that was, why don't you tell her that? Why don't you talk to her about that? And she said, because if I revealed to her how little she knows me and how little I feel connected to her, it would devastate her. And she felt like that was a higher price to pay, making her mom upset, than if she were to be able to fix that emotional connection and get some emotional need that she needed. And I think that happens for women, adult daughters, that we put our emotions secondary to our parent for a lot of reasons. One could be because they're getting older. Our parents are older than us. So whether they're 50 or 70 or, going into their 90s, we tend to think I'm more capable of handling it as a younger adult than they are. And so I'm going to take this on. We also, as women, often take on things like that. We sort of eat these emotional difficulties in all kinds of situations, our career, our parenting, our neighborhoods, because we think I'm strong enough to handle it emotionally. So I'd rather do that than create a big hubbub or have, a big row. And then the last thing is because women are just expected to do this. As women, we know that this is the kind of thing that caring is what we're obligated to do. And we think, all right, well, here it is. I knew it was coming. There's always something coming. Here's the emotional need. I'm going to take care of it.
I love that you said the word hubbub. My mom totally always said that. I use that word, and I'm like, I think I'm the last person that uses the word hubbub. So I love you, Allison, for that. That's rad. Speaking of my mom, this is crazy. I've noticed something in my own life. I memorialize my mom very differently than my older sister. She's 10 years older than me. Sometimes that was hard for me, and it really took my own therapy to kind of understand that we hold two very different versions of the same person. And I guess both can be, I think I'm still learning, and both can be true, right? We had very different relationships. I was far closer, and, even like my dad just turned 80. I was down in LA, we were all together, kids, everything. And just listening, one of like my niece's fiance or husband rather, asked my dad, was asking my dad a bunch of questions, all the kids were, and then turned to Angie and I and said, what are some memories of your dad? So we started talking about dad, and we both love my dad a lot. But then it kind of got into my mom, and then she would kind of like talk shit about my mom, and it was just like, oh. And I thank God for the therapy that I'm doing now where I can hold both of those. How does a daughter reconcile the fact that her sibling may have experienced a completely different mother, and neither of them, I guess, needs to be wrong?
Yeah, no, that's such a wise perspective, and a huge part of what I'm trying to convey in the book, Good Daughtering, is that our siblings have different experiences, different life experiences, different family perspectives. And also, one of the things we can do if I'm a burdened daughter feeling like I'm doing everything and everyone else is doing nothing, is realize that actually other people are doing things. We just haven't calculated them or noticed them or considered them important. But I think that a big part of the healing journey or becoming more effective at daughtering is having these discussions with siblings, especially important to discuss these things with our male siblings. I think it's really important to say sons are doing sonning. Sons and men are not the enemy here, and we're not saying that guys don't show up at all. I'm married to a man who is an amazing son. I am raising a teenager, and I'm giving him a lot of training that he can go out and be independent, and when he's an adult, he's going to be doing great sonning for me. The difference is really a huge cultural weight and obligation that men are often not aware of, that is persistent, lifelong for women. Even when your mom is gone, passed away, you're still a daughter. And part of what you have to carry on is her legacy, her femininity, her food, her traditions, her special things that she would bring to the family. And there is it might be hard for a man to see or a brother to see the large weight of that responsibility. And I think that what we can do is not look at our sibling. Now I'm shifting gears here, Adam, but not look at our sibling and be like, oh my gosh, this is just so much junk that my sister is saying, and she's not saying anything pleasing or pleasant or nice. Sometimes we need to say the junk before we can get to what's good about being in a family. And that's part of what I try to get to in the book. By the end is the goal here of going through all the junk and the hard parts and the work and the pain points is to get to the idea, but I love my family. I love being in a family. I'm glad I have a family to catch me. And I need to be able to reconnect with the gratitude of family life so that I can stay in it and be grateful for it. But we might have to uncover some of the junk first.
What a beautifully thoughtful answer. Sometimes the hardest daughtering might not be the phone calls or the planning holidays. It's about reconciling some of these choices that your parents made when you were young, especially the ones that, shaped your sense of safety. How does an adult daughter make peace with a childhood her parents decisions, parents' relationships, parents' maybe instability, emotional struggles, right, left them feeling unseen, maybe secondary even?
Yeah. It's all connected, right? Because our childhood is part of when we form our identity and then how we behave in adulthood. One of the things I like to let people know is I am not an expert on childhood or adolescence or family development in that critical moment. But what I can say is it was critical. It was important. That's where we learned our value, and it's where we learned what kind of daughter to be, and what was expected of us, or maybe no one told us, and we weren't trained, but we were just catching what to do and how to do it. So I think you're right on the money, Adam, that when we become an adult, we have a reframe to do. And first of all, that reframe is now I'm an adult. I do not have to stay stuck in a family pattern, but I also can't undo what was done to me, but I can reconcile it. I can discuss it. I can probe it and ask, do I want to keep that with me? Or do I want to proceed forward in my life in a different way? Because now as an adult, what I'm talking about adult daughtering is the choices I make towards the upward generation in our intergenerational communication, to have connection, to have community, to have intimacy with my parents. And of course, that involves the network of other people. But part of having that connection with my parent may mean that I need to go through some difficult things from the past. Again, getting rid of the junk so that I can go forward. And I always recommend that if you need to, you bring in a professional to help with those conversations.
Love the professional. I hear this a lot in therapy, and therapy is my favorite habit. The question becomes, okay, what is Big Adam going to do for Little Adam, right? Like the adult version of us is trying to heal what happened back there. If an adult daughter is doing that healing work herself, tending to the younger version of her, what can an adult mother do now in this stage of life to step in to the role maybe her daughter may still quietly long for?
Yeah, I think what's so beautiful about adult mothers or mothers of adult daughters is that she's a daughter too, right? And so if she does her daughtering work to understand how she has felt in that subordinate role, or when she felt like she had choice or no choice, and then applies that mentality to her daughter, and is seeing the perspectives of her daughter, then that's where we can kind of come to new understanding and new places, right? So to put it in more simple terms, the mother needs to listen, learn, ask questions, and accept that journey that the daughter is on, it may be a little bit, there may be some potholes, there may be some bumps in the road, but the daughter's trying to get to something important by going through that mess, by going through the mud, trying to get to something important. And I think if the mothers can hold on through the mud instead of taking it personally, but instead thinking, what I'm hearing is part of my daughter's journey, and she's telling me about the mud she's been in, and not taking it so personally or as an attack, then together you can get through to a new place. Because when we talk about, as a daughter, when I share about my daughtering experience, the daughtering work, the daughtering burden, the goal isn't to hurt other people or tear them down or pull them apart. The goal is actually to get to a stronger, more fortified connection. And we do that by communicating, by sharing our stories, by telling about our feelings, asking the other person to see us, see what's been invisible, validate what's been invisible. And then once they've done that, we can kind of say, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And now, but that process might take years. And it's only going to be better with willing, kind participants who are saying, like, I'll go through this with you.
Yeah. Well, look, I would love to chat with you again. I could still think of like kind of tackling, not all parents were fully healed when they were raising kids. Some were still figuring it out themselves. So how can a daughter love a parent deeply and still acknowledge that maybe that parent wasn't capable of giving that person what they needed? Also, some daughters are, they lose a parent to chaotic or sometimes sudden traumatic loss. And how do you reconcile love with those unanswered questions? And how does losing a mom or dad, for that matter, at a formative like adult age, how does that shape the rest of your identity? But I know our time is up now. I have just thoroughly enjoyed having this really thoughtful chat with you. Hopefully we can do this again. I can get a hold of you maybe through your website or something.
I would love to have another chat, Adam, because again, your questions were very thoughtful, and it sounds like you're ready for a PhD in communication studies. So I would consider that. It sounds like you'd be a great researcher because you are a curious questioner, and that's really the place to be. Is we don't have all the answers, but if we can pose really thoughtful questions, then I think we can start to unlock things. So thank you so much for having me.
Is your website a good place to get a hold of you?
Yes, daughtering101.com. You can find me on Instagram, daughtering101, Substack, daughtering101. It's everywhere.
I'll put all the links in the show notes too. You've been fantastic, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
All right, great show. That's exactly the kind of conversation I didn't know I needed today. And as a man with a sister who's 10 years older, put some things into perspective. And I've been talking a lot with my therapist about my relationship with my mom who has passed versus my sister's relationship with my mom. Very different, but it's certainly interesting and grown to really respect the different ways we memorialize our mom. It's hard to even say it. It's like, she's my mom. Oh yeah, I forgot she's your mom too, So I really liked, and I was happy that I got to that Dr. Alford entertained some of those questions with that lens on me of being a brother to someone who's kind of wrapping their head and heart around his sister's relationship with his mom, because it was her mom too. So really interesting stuff. The book is called Good Daughtering. The website, Daughtering101, but heck, I'll put all that ish in the show notes for you. Okay. So not just if you're a woman, if you are a man who has a sister, you are a man who has a partner. They're women, all women. Guess what? 100% of women, last time I checked, were daughters. So, boom, there you go. Thank you so much to Dr. Allison Alford. All right, we are skating to the weekend. This is good. We are just like almost there. Going to get a little bit warmer. Going to be a beautiful weekend. Gorgeous day today. I want to thank my friends Moonshiner Collective for being Up and Adam. Original music on this show, it's called Start Again. Check it out wherever you get your music. Stream them wherever, and then go to moonshinercollective.com for more. How about Timbre Winery, giving us them Lowbrow Studios? Yeah. Check out Josh and Chiasa's beautiful winery, Timbre, Timbre. Taste them wines in the village of Arroyo Grande. Incredible wines, good people, just great people, love them. And I thank them very much for giving us the Timbre Lowbrow Studios. Also, most important, thank you for you. You look great, by the way, today. I will tell you that. Thank you for connecting here, for making this community just that much better by you being part of it. It means so much. Thanks for helping others discover what we're doing here by sharing this, rating, reviewing, subscribing to the podcast, even taking a moment if you're on Apple Podcasts to write that review. Give her 5 stars, baby. Yeah. Thank you. Till tomorrow, when it will be Friday. I'm Adam Montiel. Thank you again for being Up and Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.